7 major political ideologies explained. Political arguments can sound complicated because people often use words like liberal, conservative, socialist, or fascist as insults instead of actual definitions. But most modern political movements can still be traced back to a few major ideological families. These ideologies do not fit perfectly into 7 boxes. They overlap, change from country to country, and often disagree within themselves. Still, understanding these 7 gives us a useful map of modern politics. Let's start with liberalism. Liberalism developed in Europe during the 17th and 18th centuries, especially during the Enlightenment. Thinkers such as John Locke argued that people were born with natural rights, including life, liberty, and property. Government, according to Locke, did not receive its authority from God, kings, or tradition. It received authority from the consent of the people. Early liberals opposed absolute monarchy, religious control, inherited privilege, and restrictions on trade. They supported constitutions, elected governments, freedom of speech, equality before the law, religious freedom, and private property. Over time, liberalism divided into different branches. Classical liberals usually favored limited government, free markets, and strong property rights. Modern or social liberals argued that the government should also provide education, healthcare, welfare, and legal protections. Their argument was that freedom means very little if people do not have the basic resources needed to use it. This is why the word liberal can mean different things in different countries. In the United States, liberalism is normally connected to the center-left. In parts of Europe, liberal political parties may be more economically free market and politically centrist. Next is conservatism. Conservatism developed partly as a reaction to the French Revolution, which began in 1789. One of its most influential early thinkers was Edmund Burke, an Irish-born British politician and writer. Burke did not believe that society should never change. Instead, he warned that destroying old institutions too quickly could create violence, instability, and chaos. Conservatives generally value tradition, social order, family, religion, national identity, private property, and personal responsibility. They often believe that institutions which have survived for generations may contain wisdom that is not immediately obvious. Conservatism does not always mean wanting a weak government. Many conservatives support strong police, national defense, border enforcement, and laws protecting traditional social values. At the same time, economic conservatives often support lower taxes, fewer business regulations, reduced government spending, and greater individual responsibility. Conservatism also changes depending on the country. An American conservative, a British conservative, and an Indian conservative may support very different policies because each one is defending a different national tradition. Now, we come to socialism. Socialism became a major political force during the Industrial Revolution in the early 19th century. Factories created enormous wealth, but workers often faced long hours, low wages, dangerous conditions, child labor, and almost no political power. Early socialist thinkers included Henri de Saint-Simon, Charles Fourier, and Robert Owen. They believed society should be organized around cooperation and shared responsibility rather than pure competition. Socialism argues that major parts of the economy should serve the public good, not only private profit. Socialists usually support stronger worker protections, public services, progressive taxation, labor unions, and some form of shared worker or government ownership. However, socialism is a very broad ideological family. Democratic socialists want to achieve major economic reforms through elections and democratic institutions. Social democrats usually accept capitalism but want it heavily regulated. They support programs such as universal health care, public education, unemployment benefits, pensions, and strong worker protections. Other socialists want much more direct worker or government control over the economy. So, socialism does not automatically mean the government owns every shop, farm, restaurant, and business. In many modern countries, socialist ideas exist through public healthcare, labor laws, welfare programs, and government-owned services operating inside a mostly capitalist economy. Communism is closely connected to socialism, but it is not simply socialism turned up to the maximum. Modern communism is most strongly associated with Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. In 1848, they published the Communist Manifesto. Marx and Engels argued that history was driven by conflict between social classes. Under capitalism, they believed the main conflict existed between workers and the people who owned factories, land, and capital. According to Marxist theory, capitalism would eventually be replaced by socialism. Socialism would then develop into communism, a classless society in which major productive property was held in common. The final communist society was also supposed to be stateless, meaning that the government would eventually become unnecessary. In practice, however, governments calling themselves communist developed very differently. The Soviet Union, Maoist China, and other communist governments created highly centralized one-party states. The government controlled most of the economy, political opposition was restricted, and power was concentrated in the ruling party. That difference between communist theory and historical communist governments is important. Supporters of communism focus on economic equality, collective ownership, and ending class exploitation. Critics point to authoritarianism, political repression, economic shortages, and the failures of centralized planning. Next is libertarianism. Libertarianism places individual freedom at the center of politics. Its intellectual roots can be found in classical liberal thinkers such as John Locke and John Stuart Mill. But modern libertarianism became especially influential during the 20th century. Libertarians believe people should be free to live however they choose, as long as they do not violate the rights of others. They usually support freedom of speech, private property, free markets, low taxes, and a very limited government. Libertarians are often economically right-wing, but socially permissive. For example, a libertarian may oppose both strict business regulations and government control over private relationships, drug use, religion, or personal expression. They generally believe the government should not protect people from their own personal choices. However, libertarians disagree about exactly how small the government should be. Some support a minimal government limited mainly to courts, police, and national defense. Others, known as anarcho-capitalists, believe even those services could be handled by private organizations. Then, there is fascism. Fascism emerged in Europe after the First World War. Benito Mussolini founded the first major fascist political movement in Italy in 1919. He took control of the country in 1922. Adolf Hitler's Nazism later developed into a more openly racial, expansionist, and genocidal form of fascism in Germany. Fascism rejects liberal democracy, political equality, and limits on state power. It promotes extreme nationalism, obedience to a powerful leader, militarism, and the belief that the nation must be united against internal and external enemies. Fascist movements often claim that their country has been humiliated, weakened, or betrayed. They promise to restore national greatness by removing political divisions and placing power in the hands of a strong leader. Unlike traditional conservatism, which usually tries to protect existing institutions, fascism is revolutionary. It attempts to completely rebuild society through mass propaganda, political violence, centralized authority, and total loyalty to the nation or leader. Fascist governments may allow private businesses to exist, but those businesses are expected to serve the goals of the state. Independent labor unions, opposition parties, elections, and free media are normally restricted or destroyed. The word fascist is often used casually today to describe anyone who seems controlling or authoritarian. Historically, however, it refers to a specific ultranationalist and anti-democratic political tradition. Finally, we have environmentalism. Environmentalism became a major political ideology much later than the others, although concern for nature is much older. Modern environmental politics developed from conservation movements during the 19th century and expanded rapidly during the 20th century. Writers and activists such as Rachel Carson helped transform the public debate. Her 1962 book Silent Spring warned about the environmental damage caused by pesticides and helped inspire the modern environmental movement. Environmentalists argue that political and economic decisions must consider ecosystems, climate change, pollution, biodiversity, natural resources, and the long-term health of the planet. Some environmentalists support market-based solutions, including carbon taxes, renewable energy investment, and incentives for cleaner technology. Others believe that endless economic growth is incompatible with the planet's ecological limits. They call for major changes to consumption, transportation, agriculture, manufacturing, and energy production. Green political parties began gaining influence in Europe during the 1970s and 1980s. Many of these parties combined environmental protection with social equality, peace, human rights, and grassroots democracy. So those are the 7 major ideological families. Liberalism begins with individual rights and representative government. Conservatism emphasizes tradition, order, personal responsibility, and gradual change. Socialism focuses on economic equality, cooperation, public services, and shared control of important resources. Communism seeks a classless society through the abolition of private ownership over major productive property, although historical communist governments became highly centralized. Libertarianism pushes personal and economic freedom as far as possible while minimizing government intervention. Fascism places the nation, the state, and the leader above individual liberty and democratic government. Environmentalism asks society to make political and economic decisions within the limits of the natural world. In reality, most political parties mix several of these traditions. A party might be socially conservative, economically liberal, environmentally active, and supportive of government healthcare at the same time. That is why political labels can be useful, but they can also be misleading. They are not always fixed identities. They are tools for understanding what people believe government should protect, what it should control, and what kind of society it should help create.